Hi, everybody. This is Dave Palmer, and this is St. Thomas Aquinas for everyone. And as you know, we've been going through the Summa Theologia. We're almost halfway through. And I wanted to do a special video here because I feel very inspired to do this because I think that the studying of St. Thomas Aquinas and Thomistic philosophy, it used to be like a recommendation. Now I think it's a necessity in light of what's going on in our country and in our world. I came on January 1st and I started teaching the Summa. And at that time I said, hey, who wants to join me? Let's study the Summa. And I knew that it was very important for people to study the Summa. I think children should study it. High school students, college students, everybody should be steeped in Thomistic philosophy. But now that we're halfway through the year, I no longer feel like it's a recommendation. I think it's a necessity because of what has transpired in 2020, and we have got to get a grip on the roots of the problems that are facing us right now. And so I do have a sense of urgency. And if you agree with this, especially after you've watched this video, please comment and also forward this, share this, because that's what we're doing on this site is we're studying Thomistic philosophy. And like I said, I think it's no longer a recommendation, it's a necessity for the reasons that I'm going to explain in this video. Okay? Early on in one of the first videos, I introduced you to a encyclical by Pope Leo XIII. It was written in 1879 and it's called Aeterni Patris. And that means Eternal Father. The subtitle is The Restoration of Christian Philosophy According to the Mind of St. Thomas Aquinas. I'm going to make the case in this video that we need to restore our culture through good philosophy, okay? And we can't wait. We can't say, oh, I'll study it next year. I'll study it in 2 years. I'll study it, when life gets not so busy. We got to study it now because the culture's falling apart. And I'm going to make the case that it's because of philosophical roots. And so, anyways, this is a line from Aeterni Patris. If anyone look carefully at the bitterness of our times, and he consider earnestly the cause of these things. Now let me just stop right there and say the bitterness of our times. In 2020 already, I'm recording this in July, we have seen, of course, the coronavirus pandemic, crisis, hysteria, but we've also seen a lot else. We've seen the riots. We've seen the police and the rioters in death and destruction and a lot going on in many cities across America, in fact, most cities. We've seen buildings being set on fire, churches being set on fire, a lot of lawlessness, right? We've seen, again, lawlessness, especially directed against police officers and the establishment and the rich and what other, any other targets that might be targeted by this particular group, okay? Clashes, again, Antifa, different groups, BLM against the police, all right? We've seen the toppling of statues, especially in California, where St. Junipero Serra in San Francisco and elsewhere in California and other parts of the country now are being targeted, right? We've seen even the Blessed Virgin Mary desecrated, like this case in Boston, where she was set on fire and charred, okay? And if that's not alarming, it really should be, because if you love our Catholic faith, if you love the saints, the Blessed Mother, if you love Jesus and have respect for his mother, this should really bother you, okay? We've seen, even as the time that I'm recording this, another fire being set to a cathedral, a beautiful church in France, okay? So this is all across the world. This isn't just America. So we have a problem. And the problem didn't start in 2020. The problem didn't start in 2019 or even 1900. The problem goes way back. And I want to finish this quote from Leo XIII. If anyone look carefully at the bitterness of our times, and he consider earnestly the cause of these things. Now listen, he was writing this in 1879, so he saw the bitterness of his time, but it wasn't this kind of stuff that we're dealing with. It was different, right? He was concerned. The cause, he will find, consists in this: evil teaching about human and divine has come forth from the school of philosophers. Okay? He pinpoints the problem there. It's philosophers. We think that it's the media or, what other boogeyman, the newspapers or Hollywood. That's just a symptom of a much bigger problem, right? So what Leo was talking about is like this guy who died in 1900, shortly after this encyclical was put out. Friedrich Nietzsche, okay, famous for saying God is dead. He was an atheist. He didn't like Christianity. He disparaged Christianity. He mocked it, right? Jean-Paul Sartre, a nihilist, atheist, French. Died. He didn't die until 1980, so he's more modern. I mean, he only died about 40 years ago. All right, but again, the damage has been done, and all these philosophers influence each other. Okay, here's William of Ockham, one of the proponents of nominalism. And again, I'm not going to get into all these errant philosophies, but basically we name things. Okay, things don't have an essence; it's just a name that we give it to them. Okay, he was actually a priest, but did a lot of damage. Okay, how about Immanuel Kant, the Copernican revolution in philosophy, having to do with epistemology, the very way we come to know things was called into question. Okay, and I will say that every one of these philosophers chipped away at the good, solid philosophy that St. Thomas Aquinas had established in the 13th century. Right? Now, I'm a little biased. I think St. Thomas Aquinas is great, but the Catholic Church agrees with me because he's the doctor of the doctors. He's the patron saint of all Catholic school education. All right? So these are the bad philosophers. And that's not to say they didn't have some good elements. Nothing's entirely bad. Okay? These are children of God. These are God. Jesus Christ died for these men, right? Karl Marx. Okay, need I say more? Okay, do we see Marxism alive and well in our culture today? Yeah, you have to say yes. I mean, it's a big problem right now, right? And I'll tell you a philosopher in a moment who he was greatly influenced by, who lived, before him. Here's Auguste Comte. All right, he believed in positivism. Okay, I don't believe anything that I can't test or see or taste or do a lab experiment on. Okay, so that throws out faith. It throws out things that are not able to be sensed. Okay, that's a dangerous philosophy. All right, Rene Descartes. Okay, he kind of in many ways got it started with I think therefore I am. Again, don't have time to get into all this, but that's problematic, and that set off a whole group of philosophers that rationalism, where we can only trust our mind, our rational part of our being without the sense experience. Okay, Thomas Aquinas did not believe in this. He thought we were composites, we're body, we're soul. Thomistic philosophy is so important. Ludwig Feuerbach, okay, wrote a book. He died a few years before this encyclical, so I'm positive Leo XIII had Ludwig Feuerbach in mind when he wrote Aeterni Patris, the essence of Christianity. He hated Christianity. He thought it was horrible. Okay, again, nowadays we're seeing statues being toppled and Mother Mary being set on fire. And I'm not blaming Ludwig, but this kind of philosophy has an impact. All right, and here is Hegel. Okay, Hegel had the Hegelian dialectic, which was very, very influential on a particular man who I already talked about, Karl Marx. Marx was influenced by Georg Hegel, and we see Marxism really rearing its ugly head in the culture today. All right, so Leo XIII goes on and says, St. Thomas Aquinas in a certain way seems to have inherited the intellect of all. Now he's not talking about these guys, because these guys all lived after him, right? The doctrines of those illustrious men, like the scattered members of a body, Thomas collected together and cemented, distributed in wonderful order, and so increased with important additions that he is rightly and deservedly esteemed the special bulwark and glory of the Catholic faith. Who's he talking about? Okay, I'm going to show you a bunch of pictures, and I'm just going to put them all up on the screen here, and then I'm going to tell you who some of these illustrious men are that St. Thomas Aquinas borrowed from. Okay, St. Thomas Aquinas, born in about 1225, died about 1275. He had a lot of centuries of Christianity before him. People like St. Augustine and St. Jerome and Irenaeus and Damascene and Dionysius the Areopagite and St. Albert the Great and other popes, not to mention even pagan philosophers like Aristotle and Plato, and also Peter Lombard, who he called the commentator. Okay, Thomas gathered from all of these. Let me see if I'm missing anybody. Oh, of course, sacred scripture, St. Paul and the gospel writers. Okay, Thomas relied very heavily on sacred scripture and I think I named all the other ones. Okay, so everybody before Thomas is included in Thomas, and every Christian writer after Thomas has been greatly influenced by Thomas. I mean, every single one of them. You're not going to be a great theologian or philosopher in the 13th through 21st century without having been influenced by St. Thomas Aquinas. So my whole point here is that the times right now are calling for us to draw upon the wisdom of St. Thomas Aquinas. And again, like I started off saying, it's no longer a recommendation. It's no longer kind of, hey, wouldn't that be fun to learn Thomas Aquinas? The times are calling for us to return, as St. Leo the Great, St. Leo the XIII, I should say, I think he's great, said we have to return and say the restoration of Christian philosophy according to the mind of St. Thomas Aquinas. He saw and he rang the alarm bells in 1879. He's the guy that wrote the St. Michael the Archangel prayer because he saw that the devil was starting to take control in the world. And the devil has been unleashed in 2020. We need good philosophy. We have got to get back to the basics. Again, if you study Thomas Aquinas, you're going to be studying the best philosophy that the Catholic Church has ever established. And I recommend, this is a free website, okay? I'm not making any money off this, but study these lessons. Go to other things like the St. Thomas Institute. Take courses at your local college in Thomistic philosophy. Pick up the Summa. Go online and get the Summa free and start studying it. And if you don't understand it, come to a site like this and let's start asking questions. Let's start discussing it. Let's start talking to people about Christian philosophy because it is absolutely necessary that we do so. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for commenting, liking, subscribing, and let's start a conversation and let's see if we can do what Leo the XIII asked us to do, is restore Christian philosophy according to the mind of St. Thomas Aquinas. May God bless you. May St. Thomas Aquinas intercede for us, and may our Blessed Mother and all holy saints and angels come to our aid and intercede for us. God bless you.